Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Monday Mashup. Joining me tonight, as always, Darren. How are we, Darren?
Brother Niall, we are coming close to the end.
It was an interesting weekend of football.
It was an interesting weekend. We're running out of mashups, though, brother Niall. I'm getting worried here. We don't have too many days left before the holidays.
All the potatoes this season have been well mashed at this stage, haven't they?
They absolutely have.
Well, as always, folks, before you get into the show, if you could like, share, and subscribe, head over to the channel there, the Upper Tier on YouTube. Also, if you want to check out our audio channel that's out there, the Upper Tier podcast as well, you'll get us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So let's get into this. Let's quick review of the weekend results. Started off with Newcastle versus Liverpool, the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. Newcastle 0, Liverpool 1. Aston Villa 2, Norwich 0. Norwich confirming their relegation, something that was known about for months at this stage and was well called about. Southampton 1, Crystal Palace 2.
I think most people knew Norwich were getting relegated before Norwich went up, didn't we?
Yeah. It's like a game of table tennis, really, isn't it? And they'll probably come back up the season again and then go back down again. And it's just
they might indeed under Dean Smith. They might. Yeah. Good manager.
Absolutely. Southampton 1, Crystal Palace 2. Watford 1, Burnley 2. Massive win in the relegation battle. And what a comeback from Burnley as well, being 1-0 down.
Yeah.
Wolves 0, Brighton 3. Leeds 0, Man City 4. Man City back top of the table, steamrolled Leeds after Liverpool being on top for a few hours. Went into Sunday, one that I called on our WhatsApp group. Everton 1, Chelsea 0. Few struggles there, but we'll get to chat about that later on in the hot topics. Mm-hmm. Tottenham 3, Leicester 1. Very good result for Tottenham. Son was on fire.
We may have called that in the preview, didn't we?
I think we did. Yeah, we said that they might struggle coming in after European endeavours again.
And Spurs would be at it. I think I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna say we said 3-1. I
think we did, yeah. I'm nearly sure we did.
Yeah.
And West Ham 1, Arsenal 2. Again, massive win. Arsenal going back into the top 4 position after I think Spurs had jumped in there briefly for a few hours as well. Where do we begin? Suppose we should begin with let's get into the hot topics. Mino Raiola passed away, so we'll pass on our condolences to his family and friends. Always sad when someone passes away at that young age of 54. Not a man who was well liked in football annals, but certainly well liked, I'm sure, for the players that he represented. There's no doubt he absolutely got every player he represented the absolutely best deal that was possibly available on the table. But he finally, they confirmed his passing. I think he must have been pretty bad. We've seen the updates from the hospital there during the week where I think hospital representatives came out and said that he hadn't passed, but it sounded like it was inevitable anyway. So we'll pass on our condolences and prayers to the Raiola family. Never nice when you lose someone. I'm going to move on.
Not at all. No, not at all.
Let's talk about Norwich. Norwich relegation was confirmed. Obviously, we knew this was coming. It'd been coming for a while. But Gerrard had a lot to say about Dean Smith at the end of it. It was interesting as well, I suppose, that Aston Villa relegated them, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Dean Smith and all.
It was tainted with irony, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Obviously Smith came and did a great job at Aston Villa, really did, and kind of probably brought them as far as he could have brought them. And then it was Villa then needed to look for how to get to the next level. Whether they found it or not, I'm not sure. I still think Stevie's going to do a fabulous job there. I know he's had to tough it out in the last couple of months and weeks, and things haven't been running as smoothly as he would have liked. But I feel like this could be a big summer for Villa. I think this is obviously Stevie's first transfer window with Villa, and to see how he tries to shape and mould the squad into what he's looking for. And some of the Villa performances under him have been super, and then some of them have been way off. We didn't tend to see that. Rangers were fairly consistent in their performance. Now listen, it's another league and it's a different level as well. But I still think he'll do a pretty good job. And it was nice to hear how he spoke about Dean Smith and stuff like that.
Yeah, he said the fabulous job that Dean Smith had done at Aston Villa as well. He accredited him, and he said that he's an absolute, he's a top coach, really, you know. So it was great to see Stevie talking that way, and Stevie's kind of that way. He doesn't pull any punches, you know what I mean? Like Stevie's not the kind of guy that'd like, you know, congratulate you if it's not you, kind of thing. You know, he's a straight shooter, really, you know.
Yeah, and you know, like I do like the idea that it was Stevie who took over and recognised the job Smith had done, and also probably recognised the job he'd done with in a very difficult situation at Norwich. You know, because he's come in there, he's got pretty much no money to spend coming through the door and stuff like that, and he's trying to shape and mould a squad of guys and make them a little more resilient and a little more dogged and stuff like that. Again, it's going to be a big summer for Norwich. I expect to see some casualties from the squad, you know. Obviously, like, you know, we take Brandon Williams back and probably Chelsea take Billy Gilmore back and stuff like that. I'd be surprised if the boy Max Aarons is still there next season. I think they'll probably move Timo Pukki on, and I think we might see the boy Adamida become their number 9, because prior to, you know, his injury, he had really started to shine for Ireland and for Norwich as a, you know, a target man, and a guy who brought the likes of the Josh Sargent or a Rashika into the game and stuff like that. And I think under Smith, Norwich could do well again next season. I wouldn't be at all shocked to see them pop back up straight away.
Are Sargent and Rashika two players you would expect sort of middle to bottom half of the table to be looking at and bringing in? Or would you expect them to stay?
It'll depend what the offers on the table are, I suppose, won't it?
Wouldn't be big money though, would it?
Well, they paid enough for them, I think. You know, so that I don't think they're going to be willing to sell them at a loss or anything like that. So you'd probably have to at least match what they spent on them. But, you know, to be honest with you, like, I think you could see the boys in the Championship do a good job and build themselves the way an Emi Buendia did at Norwich. Went in, you know, did a great job in the Premier League for them. They looked out, they went down. He went out, he got Championship Player of the Year season last year, and he had the likes of an Aston Villa and an Arsenal, you know, looking to spend big bucks on him. So, you know, it can be a plateau and it can be a platform to go off and get a big move if you play very, very well in that Championship, you know?
Yeah. I suppose before we move on from the Championship, we should express our congratulations to Fulham. 7-0 tonight. Absolutely outstanding.
7-0 against a really, really good Luton side. Like Luton will more than likely get a playoff place.
They're in there,
you know,
right, yeah.
And they're a very, very good side. And Fulham absolutely put them to the sword today.
And
really
not just all the Mitrovic show either. A good share of the goals around.
A good share of the goals, and you know, obviously Mitrovic's been phenomenal this season for them. Phenomenal, but they've got some really good players there. You know, the boy Carvalho obviously has played a huge part. I have to say, I've watched them a couple of times of late Fulham. The boy that plays in goal, Marek Rodek, is a very good, very accomplished goalkeeper. And again, Liverpool fans will be, you know, rubbing their hands together. The boy Nico Williams has been superb since going on loan there. He's been absolutely superb. He really has. His, you know, talk about obviously Liverpool and you know, Trent in that right back position, and you talk about his delivery and stuff like that. The boy
very
Williams,
like him, isn't he? He's very
the
like
boy
him,
Williams is he able to deliver a football or what?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like I seen him the first couple of times. Went whoa, what's going on here?
The similarities with himself and Trent in terms of attacking and defending, except he has a little bit about him, but they're very similar, aren't they? They cracked out of the same egg, really, weren't they?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's a big plus for Liverpool, obviously, because I mean, if you look at it, then you've got, you know, if you're going into next season, you've probably got Trent as your first choice right back and Nico Williams as your second. I think
he's going to move on because he's looking for full-time football. Yeah, he's looking for full-time football. So I think he's going to move on.
Listen,
that's the story anyway.
If Fulham can afford him, I would say he'd be a great addition for Fulham. If not, you know, the likes of where would you go?
Stevie would look at him, would he?
Stevie would look at him. Who's playing on the right? The boy Matty Cash plays there. I don't think he'd take his position. But if you were to get big bucks for Cash, you might look for Williams to replace him. absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Newcastle. They've obviously got Kieran Trippier. Do they bring another one in? Maybe, maybe not. Would I have him at Man United? I think I would in a heartbeat, actually, because I think he was that good. You know, but I don't know if he crosses that divide. Probably not. But listen, the kid
it'd be more about you. It'd be more about you who's crossing the divide than him, would it? If he's looking for first time football.
I don't know. I think when you've played for Liverpool or when you've played for United, it takes an awful lot to go and
that's what I mean. Do.
You know, well, for the player rather than for the club.
Yeah.
You know, I think United would happily have him. I think he would be an upgrade on what we have it right back at the minute, if I'm honest. Like, would I put him in ahead of Aaron Wan-Bissaka? 100%. Would I put him in ahead of Dalot? Yeah, I think I probably would. You know where he would be great is a Crystal Palace with the boy Tarek Mitchell on the opposite side. Yeah. You have a Mitchell and a Williams. Be phenomenal. Be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, Brighton as well, I'd say. Graham Potter would love to have him, actually.
Yeah, they would, but, you know, Brighton have Tariq Lamptey as well. So, you know, it's probably going to be too much of an outlay for somebody to say, you're going to sit in the bench for a little while. You know, at a certain level. But listen, the kid's a baller. Really is.
Yeah, interesting. We'll keep an eye on anyway. But congrats to Fulham anyway on being promoted, especially after a tough season last season when they went down with Scotty. So, good to see them back up again. And we wish
and Scotty looks like he's popping straight back up as well, doesn't he, with Bournemouth?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they've done another good job as well, you know.
Yeah. Matt Judges leaves Man United.
Bye.
Well, it was more so I brought it up as a topic, not so much about him himself, but about you're starting. Are we starting to see some of the shape coming around in this Erik ten Hag era that's beginning now? Is there changes that you're seeing coming, but not necessarily being pinned on him?
No, I think there's changes afoot, isn't there? It's hard, you know, when you look at the club. It's not changes, it's an overhaul, isn't it? You know, it's more than a change here or there. It's not a tweak.
It's root and branch.
It really is, you know, and obviously Ten Hag's a huge part of that, which is great. Judge leaving obviously is great. Woodward gone, great. You know, Ralph Rangnick in there. I think he does a phenomenal job for us, Ralph. I don't think maybe he's gotten enough credit for, you know, the managerial side of things. And, you know, obviously the performances haven't been amazing. And so we're not going to start throwing bouquets at the boy for it. But I think he's gone in there and he's done a little bit of a demolition job, hasn't he? And he's knocked everything down back to the foundations and pared it right back and gone, here's where we are. Here's your blank canvas. He's done an awful lot of groundwork for Erik ten Hag, in my opinion. I think he's laid an awful lot of foundations there. And I think he's let an awful lot of guys know that they're not up to the level of Manchester United and they shouldn't expect to be involved, and maybe start talking to your agent about getting moves, because we're going to bring players in who are at this level and you're not.
How did you feel? I know you might have picked up at yourself on some of the forums as well. I mean, the fan base at Man United has been quite split in their assessment of Ralph Rangnick. What was your feeling in relation to the Austrian job? I seen on some of the United forums this week, guys were coming out going, you know, if we're bringing Ralph in, we don't need a part-timer. We need a full guy in there, that kind of thing. What was your thinking on that? I don't know if you've seen it during the week. I've seen it on a couple of the forums. What's your feeling on that?
His consultancy role only is only 10 days a month. That's all he's contractually obliged to do, is 10 days a month in the consultancy role. So, I mean, you're probably looking at that and you're saying, you know, well, we've got an awful lot of he's got an awful lot of free time there that he could do well other things. And I mean, an international job, we know, can be, it's not extremely full on, let's say. You know, it is broken down into certain parts of the year when you work up a bulk of time, and then an awful lot, the other time might be scouting and stuff like that. If I'm at United and he's scouting players, be it Austrian or anywhere else, it's not a huge issue to me. You know, it's really not. And I mean,
I suppose when you look at the magnitude of the job at United, would you think that it would require him full time, that he'd be needed, especially in this initial, say, 12 months of Erik coming in?
I think he'll put enough hours in to fulfill the role he's been given. Because again, we don't necessarily know how big is the role, you know. So I think personally, there's enough. He's gonna be there enough to do what we expect from him, you know. And that's where I would be on it. I think, listen, United fans at the minute, they're annoyed, they're pissed off, they're ratty, you know, in general. And are they looking for something to moan about all the time? They probably are. Kind of think I find that a lot with United fans at the minute. You know, I'm on a United forum myself, and I just find lads are wanting to moan and wanting to piss into their tea and give out about this and give out about that. You know.
But in fairness, the club has earned them to the hills this season with it. You know, there's been no lack of content to absolutely piss and moan about, like so.
Of course, but you get to a stage where, you know, you've got to stop pissing and moaning about the same things. Like, the club has made changes. The club have appointed a manager. The club have tried to put a consultant in place. You know, we're hopeful. You know, hopeful. I think United fans we're going to get maybe Paul Mitchell involved in one way, shape, or form. You know, and they're looking at. I think the kind of signings we're looking at are, you know, we're looking at now signing players to fit into a manager's system.
Yeah.
As opposed to what has happened over the years, which is let's buy a player and see where we can shoehorn him in.
Which is how it always should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you feel about Paul Mitchell coming in? I know he's top gravy, but how do you feel about it in terms of the layers that are going in there? I mean, you've Paul Mitchell in there. You've got Ralph as a consultant. Now, I know they're not all doing the exact same job, but the reality is it's kind of interesting. It's well linked, you know. And then you've got the other guy in there. What's his name? He was in there with Fletcher at the moment. I can't remember his name.
Arnold, is it?
Not Arnold, is it? What's his other?
John Murta.
Murta. So, like,
John Murta.
You have a lot of guys sitting at a table to arrive at a decision, haven't you? Is your fear that it will get a bit bureaucratic?
Well, provided everyone has a say. Possibly. I don't know how many. You see, I personally think certain people will have decisions to be made in certain areas.
Yeah.
You know, I think like a Paul Mitchell is going to go in and he's going to sit at a table with Eric Ten Hag and he's going to say, Eric, what do you want?
Yeah.
And Eric's going to say, I want a left back. Okay, what do you want your left back to be able to do? This is what I want. These are the characteristics I want from a left back. Okay, have you any left backs in mind? Yes, here's what I have. Okay, let me go off. Let me have a look. Let me see what way things will work. That's that. I think the Ranić thing is going to be different, because I think Ranić is going to not just necessarily look at the first team. I think he's going to look at the structure of the club and the structure of the underage and you know, and stuff like that. I think the Fletcher thing for me is the strangest part of the whole situation. I understand John Murta. He's in the job. He's been given the job and he's been told, you know, you're going to piece this back together again. So Murta's in.
Well, Fletcher's really the apprentice, isn't he, for the future in reality, isn't he?
So are we saying he's Ralph's apprentice?
Well, I think he could probably float if Paul Mitchell comes in as well. He could float between the three. But I think what they're keeping Fletcher in there for is they want a little bit of the history of the club from previous in there as well. And what they're going to do as well is they're going to get him to get his experience on the job under the three of those guys. And eventually he would be the guy. But I suppose my concern that I'm voicing on it is, you know, if you've 3 or 4 guys in there, if you bring in a guy and it goes wrong, like let's suppose you sign a Declan Rice for argument's sake, 80 million, just for an argument's sake, right? He comes in, let's suppose he flops. Which donkey do you pin the tail to? Who's going to take the heat, you see? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, here's the thing. There's no guarantees with anybody you bring in. We've seen that time and time again coming into this league. So that will happen. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to heighten your chances of that not happening. Because if we look at the likes of a Liverpool, or if we look at the likes of a Manchester City, who have recruited extremely well over the years, they don't necessarily have a bundle of players who didn't perform at all. They have players that maybe perform at different times. We have players that aren't performing at all. So, you know, like, I know when Liverpool rock up to play the Carabao Cup next season, I'm going to see certain players at that level, you know?
Yeah.
And their job will be to perform there. And if they perform well, they might get a look in. And if they don't perform there, that's where their level will stay, kind of thing. United, throughout most of the season, have had to have the same sort of team involved throughout this season, and they hope they were going to perform week to week. That hasn't happened either. You know, so you're gonna have layers and levels in your squad, where you've got younger guys who are looking for experience, older guys who maybe have been there and done it, guys that are hungry, guys that want, and the blend of that squad is very, very important. And I don't think you can. A
lot of it though is bravery, isn't it? You have to have the balls
to
drop players when they're not performing.
Have ball, and you've got to have balls to. You know, here's the other thing that really annoys me from time to time, and this isn't just with United. This is with a lot of other teams. They look at a guy, they see him, they see the talent, right? He's at a level, and they go, we're not going to get involved there at 15, 20 million, right? Somebody signs him, he becomes a baller, and all of a sudden they're thinking about getting involved at 60 or 65.
You're paying triple.
You've got it, and if I look at, and my standout for me, the standout with this for me is Andy Robertson.
Yeah.
Right? You look at Hull, you look at the kid, you see, what's he like? He's a baller. Okay, he's playing in a side that got relegated. Yeah. Is it down to him? No. What are his attributes? What do I want from a left back? So even with the thought of us being linked to somebody like a Max Aarons, traditionally United maybe wouldn't necessarily look at a Max Aarons because, you know, you'd say, well, he's a defender that plays for Norwich who just got relegated. So he couldn't be very good.
I suppose the fan base has been in a position as well where they feel it's like nearly a slur on them to be associated with players like that. You know what I mean? They'd look at it and they go, Max Aarons. You know what I mean?
I don't get that. I just don't get it. That for me is mental.
I don't get it either, you see, but that's why I think it's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. And I think we need to become more accustomed to buying players for positions and to suit systems rather than buying players to sell jerseys. Because here's the thing. If you buy a Max Aarons and he comes in and he does the job, guess what? He's going to sell jerseys anyway because he'll be doing the job.
Yeah.
But buying a guy because he's going to sell jerseys and he may not do the job, i.e. a Paul Pogba, that's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
I suppose it's the other side. It's the other side of that bravery we just spoke about, isn't it? Having the bravery to see an eye for a player that you feel you can put him in a position that he fits into your system, but also, 100%. Understand. I suppose the problem for United as well is you've been so down in the mud all season. It's very hard to even look and plan for the future because you're living in the now all the time. You're living from week to week in the now all the time. You can't go and look and say there's a Max Aarons who got relegated now and probably gone back to Norwich. I suppose they should have been only for Dean Smith. He would have been relegated weeks ago. Yeah. But because United have been so pressed down in terms of everything that's going on from top to bottom, they can't look at a Max Aarons and go, well, there's a bargain there. We might be able to pick him up for 20 million or something like that. Does he fit into Eric's system? Boom, 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 boom. Let's try and do that business, you know. What they probably, as you said, they probably end up doing is wait for Max Aarons to go somewhere else in the Premier League. He becomes an absolute baller and then pay 50 million for him. Yeah, no, I get you.
That's typically what we've done, and that's a major issue. You know, there's some United fans, and I know some United fans have you know, because it's been spoken about, you know, and I obviously spoke about it on our WhatsApp thread. We could end up next season, in theory, let's say it happened, we brought Brandon Williams back, he got a spot in the squad, and let's say we brought the boy Max Aarons in. We could end up with two of the fullbacks off Norwich who just got relegated. Now, here's the way some United fans will look and go, they just got relegated, they're shy. Okay, well, if you're going to limit the way you're thinking, yeah, they are. But if you're going to look at how you want to play football and how those two young lads play football, with energy, with pace, with tempo. They're both two physical kids. They can deliver the ball. You know, are these kind of players we want in our team? Well, they should be. You know, if there's areas that they need to brush up on.
They're two players that have stood out this season in a team where very little has stood out. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so you've got to see. I think Sir Alex said it at one stage. It takes a special set of eyes to see the future and to see foresight and see what somebody can, and to see the potential in people, because people all too readily want to just say he's not good enough. Whereas let's not say he's not good enough. If he's not good enough, he's not good enough for a reason. Like, case in point, Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah, the two boys were at Chelsea under Jose. Things didn't suit. The system didn't suit. The style of play didn't suit. Look at the two lads now. They're probably the two best footballers in the league. I don't think there's many people would argue with Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah being the two best footballers in the league.
Two best footballers in the world. They're alone
right.
in the league.
And
obviously
both of those
Benzema
lads,
being that argument, but seriously.
And both of those lads were shoehorned, out at Chelsea.
Yeah.
And told they weren't good enough. Under a very, very good manager as well, by the way. And I'm not jumping on Mourinho over it.
Yeah.
The system didn't suit. When players tend to not play well, it's because of a reason. You've got to put a player into a situation where you're going to get the best out of them. And I think personally, that's what Klopp and that's what Pep do best.
Well, I suppose the flip side of that as well is if you look at the volume of players that United are going to require, they can't all be 50, 60 million pound players. So you're going to have to have a good scouting system that does find that gem that's 15 million or 12 million or potentially free with a signing on or something like that. So you're not just going to be able to go out and blow, 50 million on 6 players and spend 300 million, regardless of how much wages you're saving on Pogba or anyone else.
Yeah.
Let's move on though. We'll keep an eye on it. Real Madrid clinched La Liga. I don't think we can say enough good things about Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, he's just absolutely a very special coach. And he's the first coach to win titles in Europe's top 5 leagues.
I was going to bring it up, and I think that says a lot, doesn't it? Now, listen, let's not forget what he's been in charge of. He was given an opportunity to win titles. He went out and took the opportunities. But, I think if you're talking about Germany and France, there's an argument to be had that we possibly could have won titles with PSG and Burnley.
We say that, but then you look at Tuchel at PSG. I think it was not last season, but you know what I mean, where they didn't win, and Lille went on and won the title and stuff like that. So there's still I know where you're coming from with Bayern Munich, obviously, and stuff like that.
That's it. That's a Leicester moment. I mean? That Lille win is a Leicester moment.
Yeah,
that's a 1 in 100 years that's going to happen.
Yeah,
that's the exception to the rule. Yeah. Every other year it's probably going to be PSG or maybe Monaco at a push. You know what I mean?
But he's managed not only some serious players, he's managed some serious squads. And at a time where he's had to make some big decisions as well at times in those squads, But I just like the way he's so, he comes across like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, but I'd say he'd slice and dice you on performance.
I think he was a fabulous Chelsea manager, I have to say.
He was.
I think the football they played at Chelsea, because, typically being Italian, you can get the name for being defensive. Are Real Madrid defensive? Nope.
Yeah.
Were Chelsea defensive when they were scoring bags of goals with Drogba and who was the other lad who used to play up front for them on the right? Flor Malouda. Like they were scoring goals for fun. And he gives them a platform to go and play on and that solid sort of an Italian base.
Yeah.
But after that, he's got flair players in his squad, and he's got goal scorers, and he got guys that are going in to do a job. Here's the other thing I will say about Carlo Ancelotti. Let's have a little look at Everton right now.
Yeah, funny you bring that up now. It's interesting because what happened was at the halftime show they bring up like a match day memory. And the match day memory that came up yesterday was actually the goal that Beckford scored for Everton against Chelsea. And if you remember, Carlo went down the tunnel and got fired and got sacked in the tunnel. That was that game, remember? Remember Beckford scored the goal. He nearly ran the length of the pitch and he beat everyone and scored. And he had 3 or 4 chances in that game and he didn't hit a barn door. And then that one chance came from and he put it away. And that was the nail in the coffin, they say, for Carlo Ancelotti. I think he got fired by Roman in the tunnel at Everton. Isn't that the story?
That's the story anyway. We're not sure how true it was. But I mean, if you look at Everton where they are and you look at the job he was starting to do at Everton, and you've seen the type of football they played and how much kind of more resilient and, game they were compared to what we're witnessing at the minute from Everton. Now, obviously, the weekend's a great result. They've done fabulous. They obviously did the same a couple of weeks ago to United, 1-0 as well. But I mean, the struggle that Everton are in, post Carlo Ancelotti, let's say, it's real. So that's, we're not giving him a feather in his cap for it, but we're just acknowledging the fact that they weren't in that kind of a state, let's say, when Carlo was at the helm.
Yeah, the Rafa appointment as well was crazy, wasn't it? That should never happen. It's no slur on Rafa Benitez as a coach, but that should not happen.
Absolutely not, because we know we did a great job at Newcastle. Did a fabulous job at Newcastle. Really turned Newcastle again into a resilient team that worked hard, that were organised and stuff like that. But going in as a former Liverpool manager like that, it's like a red rag to a bull with the Evertonians, isn't it? The Everton fans, and he never had an opportunity, because when you start from behind the eight ball, it's going to be very, very difficult for you. And that's what they did. They set him up for failure in my eyes, to be honest with you. And listen, Rafa's not going to say no to a job like that, because I'm sure Rafa backs himself in that situation. So, you know what, we can do this. We can turn this club around, and, you know, give him the right amount of time and some money. He absolutely may have been, but unfortunately, we're looking at Everton in a very similar situation to Manchester United, where this has trickled down from the top. You know, we had the Marcel Brands thing as well. You know, this has been poor. The Everton signings have been poor. The way they've spent their money has been poor. And there's a lot of things at Everton that are wrong, you know, outside of just the first team.
Yeah, great. During the week, we got good news, or just before the weekend, I got great news that Jurgen Klopp had extended his contract to 2026, which was the news that the rest of the league, well, at least in competitive terms, didn't want to hear, but I'm sure the neutrals will be happy to hear it. But what I really picked up on his interview, I don't know if you've seen the video, was the fact that he said that both himself and his coaching team had extended to 2026. And I thought that was pivotal in the way he presented it.
Well, I watched the video, because I think you put it up in the WhatsApp group, and I watched it, and I watched it. And I just thought to myself, you know, he's one of the top coaches in the world. He's signing a new contract to keep himself at Anfield a little bit longer. I think we spoke about it previously. I always thought he would stay longer. I think there's a safety thing there when you have that shorter deal, that if things don't work out, you walk out the door, you wave to the fans, you thank them, you leave. I don't think anyone walks out the door of a club that's snowballing the way Liverpool are. I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know he spoke about, is it Ula, his wife?
Yeah.
And he spoke about Ula being very happy where she is and wanting to stay longer and stuff like that, which is great, you know. Because I'm sure they're treated like kings in Liverpool, and deservedly so.
Rightly so, yeah.
You know, but when you talk about his coaches and stuff like that, I wonder, was there maybe an issue with some of the other coaches that maybe they didn't want to stay on any longer either, you know, and maybe when it was agreed all around that everyone would stay, then he said, well, then we'll do it together, because it did seem to be like, you know, I am staying, but I'm not just staying myself, I'm staying because we're staying as a group. And I think again, he's created that at Liverpool. You know,
yeah, the way he presented it, I felt like as if they were all in a room on a Zoom call, and the contract was just one after the other on the table. You know, you know, like those Russian dolls or something like that. And I just got the feeling that, like, it was like, I mean, Pep Linders is literally like his Velcro, you know, that kind of way. Plus those other coaches. I
imagine, listen, he brought them out for a coffee or a beer or a meal and said, listen, put it to them. This is what they're offering us. If we're going to do it, we do it together. If one of us is out, we're all out. That's what I imagine. Yeah. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit romantic with that.
No, I think it's the team within the team, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, for me, it was a tough one to take. You know, again, I really like Klopp. Really, really do. I couldn't say enough good things about him. I just think the longer Klopp is at Liverpool, the harder it is for United to get involved in the trophy conversation.
Yeah.
You know? And so from a United point of view, I was absolutely, you know, gutted. But again, as I look at it as a football fan, do I want to see Klopp in Spain, or do I want to see Klopp in Germany, or do I want to see Klopp where I watch my football week to week? And if I'm honest, I want to see him in the Premier League. Yeah. So
I think if you have that competitive streak, you want to test yourself against the best, don't you?
absolutely.
And I mean, it's now, as you said, it's the Eric Ten Hag era is about to start. So he knows this is the benchmark, this is the bar. That's what you have to achieve. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
It'll bring out the best in people. Look at what it's done between Klopp and Pep and City and Liverpool. Absolutely, two teams at the absolute pinnacle of football. So it can only be good. We spoke about Ralph already, obviously, and the appointment. Little debate came up the other day with Gabby Agbonlahor on Talksport. I wanted to get your opinion on it. If you had a choice between Jared Bowen or Saka, who would you have in your team? I know I'm springing this one on you now, but he was going down through it. Obviously, he was going down. He was picking between an Arsenal and a West Ham. Let's say like a combined 11, but only for a couple of positions. But Bowen and Saka came up. It's a tough one, isn't it?
There is nothing. I tell you what, if I'm a manager and I've got that headache, it's a nice headache to have. It is a nice headache to have. Right. If I am going between the two boys, right, I'm going to go Saka.
Are you?
I'm going to go Saka.
Do you know what? It's so weird. I'm leaning towards Saka as well. But everyone who watches this show knows how much of a fans we are of Jared Bowen. I mean, we spoke about him for months Jared now Bowen. On end.
Yeah, absolutely. And love the lad. Again, that's another lad who was at Hull City at one stage. Yeah. Did a phenomenal job for them. Yeah. And was spotted. And that's the type of player we spoke about. You know, that's where somebody needs to be brave. United pulled the trigger on Dan James. They didn't pull the trigger on Jared Bowen. Yeah. One is getting to a level and one is still at a different level, Yeah. So, and I think sometimes what happens is if you're a Man United and you buy a Dan James and it doesn't work, you don't buy a Jared Bowen. Whereas I think like you've got to be brave and go, all right, well, why didn't it work with Dan James? Okay, well, maybe it didn't work because physically he's maybe not a big enough kind of a kid that every time he got the ball, he was pushed off it. Because he's certainly got the speed, he's got some of the delivery, and he can finish. And we've seen him get goals at United. I think Bowen's a little bit burlier, he's a little bit stockier. He's built a little bit more, and I think little things like that in that sort of a player can make a big difference. He's been phenomenal for West Ham.
I wonder what Dan James would he have been more successful if he was in an Eric Ten Hag setup. Because with that pace, that blistering pace and stuff like that, because you can figure out strength. These coaches can figure out strength and all that over time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think anybody in the last 2 or 3 years to come into United, we can say they've improved off the charts based on the fact there hasn't been the level of coaching going on there for my money. And good footballers are good footballers, but good footballers become great footballers with good coaching. I personally would just side with Saka, and the only reason I say it is, and this is a strange one, I like somebody who fails, but kind of comes back at it a little bit. That the England penalty thing, and
he's done brilliant.
He hasn't shied away from that.
No, he's done.
He could have absolutely buried. It was,
I suppose when you compare him to Marcus Rashford, and what's happened.
Yes, compared to Marcus Rashford, and I would even compare him slightly differently to someone. I would compare him to the David Beckham and the burning of the effigies and Beckham being the reason England went out of that World Cup against Argentina and stuff like that. And, Beckham again went on to be an unbelievable footballer. The boy Saka has come back with that kind of attitude.
I just suppose when you think both of them, they both missed those penalties.
They did.
One came back, and I know, you know what I mean? It's just the parallels are crazy, aren't they, when you think about it?
Yeah. And I like the way Saka, he's young, but he's such a leader on that pitch for Arsenal. He's their go-to guy. He's taking penalties, free kicks. He took the corner yesterday for the goal and stuff like that for the first goal. And he's involved in everything. He's brave. He's really brave. He's, you see that
there's an aura about him, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Even against United, you see the penalty being given, and you look at all the lads on the pitch. And here's the lad who missed the penalty the World Cup going, give it to me. I'll take it. And I'm going, I like a kid with a set of kahunas like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, I thought it was a good point to bring up.
It's a great point.
Champions League final. You have to put your chopper on the block here now. We're back into Champions League this week, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
Who makes the final? And then tell me who wins, who lifts it in Paris.
Well, I put my neck on the chopper before the semis, didn't I? And I said it was going to be Liverpool and City in the final. At the minute,
has that changed?
No, I don't think so. Not for me. Not for me personally. I still think Liverpool will go through. Obviously they've a couple of goal lead, and I still think City will go through.
Interesting.
I don't necessarily think. I think with PSG, obviously, what they did, with Real, what they did to PSG, and what they did to Liverpool was huge. No, not Liverpool. Chelsea. What they did to PSG and Chelsea was huge, and the comebacks and stuff like that after the first leg defeats away and stuff was massive. But I don't quite know if I see Lightning striking for a third time. I think it might be just a stage too far for them. Now, here's the only thing I will say. If we see City and Liverpool in the final, it'll be box office. It'll be absolutely box office. And I think you could toss a coin. Yeah?
I'm not sure I understand.
If we see Real versus Liverpool, I think it's Liverpool. Sorry. So I think
still be box office though, wouldn't it, with the history?
Listen, it's Real Madrid and Liverpool, isn't
it?
Yeah. Nobody's won more European Cups than Liverpool and and Real Madrid. Am I right? Or are AC up there as well? They might be. But two of the biggest clubs in world football would be amazing to see. But I still think it'd be City and Liverpool, and I think it could go deep. It could be a late night in Paris.
Yeah. I'm just wondering with Real after clinching La Liga and all the celebrations and the wave of all that with Ancelotti and everything. I don't know if you've seen the parade and stuff like that. Ancelotti dancing around, it's crazy. I'm just wondering, would they allow Man City to rock up to the Bernabeu and pull their shorts down on Wednesday, or would they be well up for it?
Listen, I think they'd be up for it, but I don't necessarily think I'd have been out doing what they were doing if I'd a game on Wednesday, and I think I'd have had me head in the game a little more, because all of those little celebrations take a little bit of time to get over and get your head resettled and refocused and stuff like that. I think City are still in, they still got their game face on. They're still very much in a title race. They're still very much in a race for the Champions League trophy. And I think City are fully focused, and Real might just have taken their eye off the ball slightly.
I'd be surprised. I think Real are going to go through on Wednesday. I've a sneaky feeling we're going to get a 2018 repeat final, and I think Liverpool owe them one after the Salah Ramos situation. So it'll be interesting.
We shall see.
Yeah. Title race. Hard to see past City at the moment. We're running out of games at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think? I think City gave themselves just enough of a buffer to allow themselves have a couple of hiccups along the way, but still just get over the line. So I just think that you guys are running out of games. What have we got? 3 left each?
4. We've 4 left each. So okay. I'll tell you who it is. Liverpool have Tottenham, Aston Villa, Southampton, and Wolves. Okay. And Man City.
I would say none of them are giveaways.
I don't know. I think Southampton and Wolves.
Southampton?
Oh, Ralph? Sorry. Oh, no, you mean the other way. I think they. You look at Southampton there at the weekend getting beaten 2-1 by Palace. No, I would say Wolves definitely have checked in. Wolves at the weekend 3-0 to Brighton at home.
Yeah, I just kind of think that's as much about Brighton checking back in again because they went missing for that part of the season.
Yeah.
They might want to try and finish on a high, but listen, they're not.
The Spurs one. The Spurs one is the
games.
one that would. The Spurs one could be a tough one because they're in a top 4 race. That's a big game this week.
You don't think Stevie will give you a test with Aston Villa?
I'd hope Stevie played the reserves, no? Just saying. No, I'm only messing.
Jesus.
Yeah, no, I think Villa will be a test as well. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, look, every game will be a test. But I don't. If you're asking me to look at the four, I think it's easier at the back end with Southampton and Wolves than it would be with Tottenham and Villa. That's my thing.
Yeah, I think they're all tough. I think all 4 games are tough, if I'm honest.
Well, every game from now to the end of the season is like a cup final anyway.
100%.
Man City, Newcastle, Wolves, West Ham, and Aston Villa.
Again, but there's no gimmies. You know, City have to go to Newcastle and play Newcastle. And you guys saw that wasn't a pushover, let's say. It was very tight. I know Newcastle didn't maybe create the chances they would have liked, but they also weren't a walk in the park, and it was physical and it was dogged and it was tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they'll do that to City as well. They've got Wolves as well and Villa, so they've 2 teams that you both have.
They Villa the last day of the season.
So if you gave Wolves and Villa, if you took Wolves and Villa out of the equation, saying Liverpool and City will beat both of them, yeah, you've got Southampton and Spurs, and they've got Newcastle and West Ham.
They could have West Ham potentially at that stage out of Europe, pushing for the top 6.
Yeah, and West Ham, like, here's the thing. Is the West Ham game in Manchester or is it in London?
Newcastle away, Wolves at home. I presume West Ham would be away, wouldn't it? Is that the way it floats? You have Newcastle away, potentially. I'm not
necessarily,
sure.
but through the wonders of modern technology,
through the wonders of live scores.
Yeah. Now let's have a little look here. Actually,
I would assume the West Ham game is in London.
The West Ham game is in London now.
Yeah.
I'd argue that's the toughest game of the 8 games.
Mm.
You know, the Spurs game is at Anfield, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking home advantage. You'd have to fancy Liverpool. I think the West Ham game is the toughest game of the 8 away at West Ham. Way they're playing.
You think potentially that could be the one?
That if I was a Liverpool fan and there's a banana skin, that's the one I'm looking at. Because don't forget, that was your banana skin earlier on the season.
Yeah.
So I would be looking at it from that sense, and I'd be saying, where did we drop points? We drop points there. They've now to go and do that. If it's going to happen, I would say that's a possibility. Yeah, 100%.
That's where.
Yeah.
Well, we keep fingers crossed and candles lit anyway. Top 4 race. Who are you going with, Arsenal or Spurs?
Yeah,
well, I suppose we say that first of all. Do you think it's a top 3 and top 4 race at this stage, or do you think Chelsea have enough?
No, I think there's a possibility that we could see Chelsea slide a little bit. Now, I personally don't think Chelsea can slide enough to come out of the top 4, but I do think they could slide to 4th. But what I think it would mean is, it would mean Spurs winning their last 5.
So Spurs would have to beat Liverpool next week.
Spurs would have to beat Liverpool next week, and Arsenal, and win their other 3 to finish ahead of Chelsea. How likely is it? I would have said it's fairly unlikely. But I think there's an opportunity for Spurs to do something. I think Spurs will get this 4th spot, if I'm honest. I think Chelsea again gave themselves enough of a buffer from a good start to the season, and picked up enough points in the second half, and they maybe weren't at their best. But I think there's enough of a gap there for Chelsea to finish 3rd and Spurs to finish 4th. That's the way.
That North London derby in 2 weeks is going to be electric, isn't it?
Well, that's a cup
final, top 4 trophy in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's 60 million on the line, 80 million on the line with your Champions League revenue, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Huge game. Huge game.
And the potential draw of players.
Yeah, and to be honest
it's also linked.
I couldn't see past Spurs in that game, if I'm honest. I have to tell you.
Arsenal are dogged, aren't they? They're dogged at the moment, Arsenal.
They're dogged. They absolutely are dogged. but I just don't think they have Kulusevski, Kane, Son. You know, I don't think they've that. I don't think they've, you know, they look a bit watery at the back at times with their flat back four, whereas Spurs will go in with a 5 and we'll probably boss the middle with Hallberg and Bentancur, you know, so I'd have to think Spurs will do it.
It's going to be interesting anyway. It's shaping up. Like, what a season. Title race, top 4, relegation battle, the whole lot. We're spoiled at the moment, really.
100%.
Last one I wanted to finish on, a man we both think is exceptional, Mo Salah. He won the Football Writers Association Player of the Year. What's your thoughts on that? And I mean, not in terms of Mo Salah winning it, but your thoughts on a lot of the talk that came out the other day was in terms of the timing of it. That, like, we're still really in the grips of a season with a lot still to be played for. And out came the award, you know, because I suppose the conversation that was being had the other day was, well, what happens if Liverpool's season falls flat in its face? And let's suppose Man City win a treble.
Yeah, well, there's two ways of looking at it. If Man City do win the treble, you know, they're the best team in the country. That's not to say Salah isn't the best player in the country. You know,
I believe it was close between himself and Kevin De Bruyne, so that's where I'm really coming from.
And I suppose I don't necessarily agree with them giving out awards 3 games from the end of the season. You know, I feel like, and I think it's something that maybe the networks and football and stuff like that copped onto over the years. Because if you remember it, a number of years ago, they used to give the man of the match out maybe in the 82nd, 83rd minute. And now sometimes we're in the 91st or the 92nd minute, because it could be that vital winning goal. It could be that save. It could be that one moment that wins you a game. You know, and all of a sudden you have your man of the match then, and your headlines are written. Now, that's not to say guys don't put in a great performance, but you know, I think we should wait till the end of the season. I really, really do. I don't think awards should be given out mid-season.
I suppose the other question is, how do you feel about individual awards for a team game?
Yeah, I'm fine with individual awards. Yeah. Absolutely fine with individual. Yeah, 100%. I'm fine with individual awards. And the reason I would be fine with individual awards is I feel like, you know, as a team, if you're trying to get to a certain level, you need individuals to raise their performance, you know, so I do want that recognized. You know, like, and I want to be able to say who's the best player in this situation, who's the best player in it. I want that, you know, I really, really do. So for me, I'm fine with that, to say.
But I suppose I'm thinking, if you take, say, a team like, for argument's sake, Man City, and you've got so many good players who perform at such a high level week in, week out. Like, you're thinking of Rodri there, Bernardo Silva, Ruben Diaz at the back, Edison in goals, all these brilliant players, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're thinking, like, then the award comes out and it's kind of, say, Kevin De Bruyne. Yeah. But it's like, Kevin De Bruyne's brilliance is built on the backbone of all those other players' work as well. You know what I mean? And I'm just that's why I sometimes look at these individual awards and I go, you know, like, how good is Bernardo Silva and Rodri and all these great players, you know? Yeah,
but you've also got Gravy, and then you've got Bisto. And I want to know what Bisto looks like and tastes like as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And some guys are just, no, and maybe there's only 5-10 players in the league that could possibly win that.
That's the difference, yeah. Just that big.
You know, but they can be the difference. They're the guys that pop up, you know, in the 92nd minute when it's 1-1, and you need that little bit of magic. You know, we talked about United this season being moments FC. Well, when you've got guys that can pop up in those moments, they're the special ones. They're the jewels in the crown, and they should be. They should be, you know, cherished and savoured like that. You know, for me, they should.
Yeah.
Plus,
fair point.
And this is a personal thing. This is something personal, you know. I played 1 year, played senior football 1 year, and I played in, we'll say it was a poor team. We played at a great standard, but it was a poor team that season, and we really, really struggled. And I played in goal, and we were beaten an awful lot of weeks, and we struggled for the whole season, and we actually finished 3 off the bottom, and it was only the bottom 2 going down. And I got my recognition of, you were our player of the season, pal, and we wouldn't have stayed in this division only for you. And there's this and that, you know what I mean? And for me then, like, as well, that was also something where I had to turn around and say, right, well, I've got to say this sort of a level. Now I need to help bring my team on to the next level. And I feel like that's important as well.
Yeah. Talking about great players who make players around them great as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were going to mention it, but I wanted to mention a guy we spoke about last week. We spoke about Nick Pope at Burnley, and we spoke about how maybe he should be slightly more involved in that England setup. And we also spoke about how at times we're not overly pleased with the Jordan Pickford and the way and the antics and stuff like that. Pickford at the weekend was scarily good.
Sensational, yeah.
Scarily good. And I just feel like when we piss on somebody and we give them a little bit of stick, it's not because we don't like them necessarily. It's just because maybe things aren't going their way and we're highlighting things. But I don't think we could go through this mashup without mentioning the boy Pickford. I watched the highlights yesterday. I was like, is this a computer game? What am I watching here? Like,
it was crazy. I didn't even see any of it. I was out at a game in Lusk, but it was absolutely, from what I heard, it was just crazy. I've seen some of the highlights, and I think that Mount hit both bars or both posts or something like that, or something like that. It was just
it was like, listen, it was like the Alamo, but I think he'd obviously blessed the crossbar and the post and everything, because he just couldn't get out the slide by them. But you make your own look at times, and he made some phenomenal saves. And I suppose for me, that's the Jordan Pickford I want to see, not the Jordan Pickford that comes and claims the ball in the Merseyside derby and falls on the ground and starts winking and smiling, and like when you're doing stuff like that, you're maybe taken away from your level of ability, and whereas yesterday
you're supposed to be a professional footballer.
Yeah, and yesterday he parked all that, and yesterday we saw the guy who isn't the England's number one. And the guy who on yesterday's performance, if he plays like that every week, he'll stay England's number one. Now, the issue I have with him is we don't get that every week. I think it's a focus, and I think it's a concentration thing from him. But I just wanted to give him a shout out because I thought yesterday was absolutely phenomenal.
Yep, good show. Well, as always, a pleasure having you on for the Monday mashup. If you want to contact the show, it's the uppertierpodcast@gmail.com.
Not many mashups left.
But we will be back with 2 belter of transfer shows throughout the summer as well. So we'll certainly be providing you with plenty of content.
And I get the feeling I'm going to enjoy this transfer window.
Well, at this stage, you've no choice because you haven't enjoyed the last few.
I know, but like I'm just thinking sheer quantity at this stage. Like, if we don't bring 5 newbies through the door, I'll be shocked. Shocked.
There is a lot of teams in this division that have to do a lot of business this summer. Because as we've already spoke about, the gap to the top 2 is broadening all the time. You can see both teams are doing the business. And imagine if Haaland comes in from Man City. Good Lord.
Yeah, that's... the only thing that for me will hold City up in their search of a title and stuff like that is that lack of having a front man. And we mentioned it throughout the season that not getting Kane and not necessarily having that number 9 and stuff like that, But like, to think of them with Haaland next season is a scary prospect. It really is.
I was talking to Ian earlier today, and he said that he could fancy the boy Gabriel Jesus at Chelsea. And I was thinking afterwards, could he make the move across to the red side? Welcome to Manchester, Gabriel Jesus. 40 million is the talk.
It was muted on a couple of United forums and threads that people were saying he might be of interest to United and stuff like that. And I don't know if it would be my personal choice. However, what I will say is you cannot slight the kid on his work rate and on his effort and on his what he puts into the game. Now, here's where we've got to balance that out, right? And I'm going to look at another Brazilian who's just entered the pitch at Old Trafford, and that's our boy Fred, who we know I'm a big fan of. Again, another lad, work rate, endeavour, an engine, a similar sort of a player to Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, plays a little bit deeper and can finish in the manner that Gabriel Jesus can. But still, there's only so many of those players that you would necessarily fit into a team without also having the quality then to go and open a defence or, things like that. So I don't know. He certainly wouldn't be my first choice, but I don't also think he's a bad choice. So I'm kind of on the fence with it at the minute.
Interesting. Well, as always, it's Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, the Upper Tier Podcast, and audio versions show Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. And we will be back this week with match reactions, previews, player ratings. We dropped our preview today for the Villarreal game. So if you want to head over there, any Reds fans on the Shankly sessions, it's up there now, ready to be viewed. And we will talk to you again real soon. Cheers, bud.
Thanks, pal.